Hello and welcome to the show. We are at the top of Mt Chiliad for some more downhill chaos, and our first vehicle today is the Hotknife, which has a fantastic sort of party piece with the fire out of the front. It looks very cool, I have to say, with the the fire spewing out of the front. I've always liked the look of this car. Never got a chance to drive it on the 360 because it was a limited collector's edition car. But now on the Xbox One, you can have a go with driving the Hotknife. So yeah, I was very excited to give this car a drive and see how it did going down the mountain. There are a couple of big problems with it. First of all, the brakes, or the lack of brakes. It doesn't stop. It really just does not get stopped at all. Now we've seen quite a few times now with this game on Xbox One, the cars seem to have more powerful brakes. When they fall off the mountain here, you tend to be able to get them under control a hell of a lot quicker, especially with the monster truck, for example. That could get stopped very, very quickly when it fell off here. This can't. This will fall and slide and will not slow down at all in any way, shape or form if things go a little bit wrong. The brakes are terrible on this car. It just doesn't stop. Basically, this one here is rolling sort of down a little gullyway bit. But even when it did get straightened up, I was hard on the brakes. Still won't get stopped. Eventually, it will come to rest, pointing in a direction. Quite what direction, I don't know. It just doesn't stop at all, and I was having quite a lot of issues getting it slowed down into turn one. I got it a bit better that time. Again, we're falling off the side here. This is normally, most of the cars would have been able to have pulled up in time for that, but nope, we're going. We're hard on the brakes here. The engine note can't decide what to do. I'm still completely and utterly on the brakes down here. It's not stopping because it still will not stop. It's even picking up speed, and then eventually we end up falling over and end up in a tree, I think. No, we bounced past the tree. Will it eventually come to it? Nope, we're still going just about. Got it stopped in time. I say in time, but just about got it stopped. I don't know what it is, why it is on this car that the brakes just barely work. The other problem that you have with it is there is quite a lot of understeer. This is not an easy car to drive on tarmac, on the normal roads around, let alone when you're trying to drive it down the mountain. Cougar gets in the way. I may have got things a little bit wrong there. I think I've just had a wheel over the edge. I mean, it's a very narrow road down this first path, and it's a difficult car to drive and you get it a tiny bit wrong, you're going to tend to have a bit of a problem. I may have not meant quite to have taken that route there. Got a big airtime over a jump that we don't normally have any problems with. This was another real problem area, trying to get the damn car stopped after that first sort of jump bit. It had so many issues. I mean, the car didn't really take that much damage. There's not a huge amount to damage on the vehicle, to be honest. And I was amazed, despite the fact it's kind of got sort of like an open-wheeled front bit. I'm amazed I never bent up any of the wheels on this vehicle. Again, understeer was a bit of a problem. You had to be quite slow through some of the corners. Yes, I got the car going again. It was just a spin, but yeah, you've got to be very, very careful. Another one, just outbrake myself a little bit, and then we got a bit of understeer, and then we end up falling sort of off the course. Again, you can get the car back going, but it was a pain. It was a real pain in the arse trying to drive. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's such a shame that it doesn't drive particularly well. Coming up towards the second jump, and everything's all gone wrong before we ever make it there. Amazingly, I managed to recover it, and then the minute I do, I find another bump, and then we're sliding. I'm on the brakes here. We're sliding, and I cannot stop the car. There is nothing I can do. It's going to go over the edge, and it's going to fall down the mountain, the side, and it's not going to stop. It reminds me quite a lot like driving the rat loader. The rat loader has the worst brakes you will ever have on a vehicle on GTA 5. It really just does not stop at all. The rat loader looks cool, but the brakes are atrocious on it. This is a very similar handling car. I think, to be fair, the rat loader may have a bit better turning grip than this. I don't know, they're both pretty damn awful. Again, we're having lots and lots of problems on this corner as we go plummeting over the edge again. The combination of understeer and poor brakes at that particular corner was rather annoying, and now I just can't stop the car. Once it started going, I love how it manages to kind of land perfectly upright against a tree, and it still doesn't stop though. It still wants to carry on going downhill. Now we've got to spin around in some circles. Eventually coming to a halt. Yeah, a very, very difficult vehicle to drive. This one coming up towards the second jump now, and get the landing okay. Things are looking quite good. I end up out a little bit wide. I think one of the bushes kind of sucked the car into the side, and then I'm trying to slow it down for the final turn. And again, we don't have any brakes. We're not stopping for the final turn. There's a bit of a roll and a bit of a bump, and we kind of land it, sort of ish. It took a little while. It took a little while to get a clean run from the Hotknife. You just have to be slower with this car. You just got to brake a lot earlier. Coming into the turn one here, you've got to slow it down a hell of a lot more than you do with the other cars. You've got to be quite careful down this opening section. You have to always be careful down here. It's a very narrow bit, but you can't get things wrong with this vehicle. If you brake a fraction too late in this car, you're going to have a very, very big crash. You can sometimes get away with it with some of the other vehicles. Okay, you may not quite take the optimum line through a corner, but if you brake a little bit late in one of the supercars, for example, you're still going to get it stopped. You brake a bit too late in this, and you're going to go soaring off the mountain. It wasn't too bad around the hairpin, I have to say, which surprised me. With a little bit of help from the handbrake, you get it around there without too many issues. Yeah, this is one of the problem areas. I spent many a time smacking into the rock over there. Just got to be incredibly slow coming over that jump to make sure that you have time to get the vehicle stopped before the next corner. Got to keep an eye out on the bushes around here. Fortunately, I couldn't really push this car anyway because it was too understeery, so the bushes didn't really cause too much of a problem over one of the big jumps. We get a bit wide, a bit sideways over the bumps. But this vehicle did fairly well with dealing with the bumps themselves. It was just the slowing down for the corners and the actual the understeer that was a problem. It did okay dealing with all the bumps. Again, I was being very, very cautious coming down here because this is a very steep, very narrow pathway that you can't take any speed down in this vehicle, otherwise you'll never get it stopped for this second to last corner. It's quite bumpy on the exit, but that doesn't bother the Hotknife too much. Around the final turn, and it is a run towards the line and a big jump, and the tree is definitely the most effective way of slowing this vehicle down. Yeah, it's a very cool car. I love the look of the Hotknife, fantastic looking vehicle, but the lack of any braking braking power and the general understeer make it a very hard vehicle to drive. Fun one for perhaps cruising around in, and you can make an awesome light show from the from the exhausts, but yeah, driving it down that mountain, it is not particularly good. It's just a pain fighting this car all the way down the mountain, but it looks very, very cool. Up next, we have got the Carbon RS motorbike. Now, bikes tend to be very fast down here. On the Xbox 360, the bikes ruled the leaderboard, and I was expecting we were going to have a fairly similar thing with this one. The reason being is the bikes are very quick accelerating, but they also have phenomenal brakes, and they have a hell of a lot of grip. You can carry stupid speed through some of the corners. Now in first person, it's quite quick and utterly terrifying driving down this mountain. I may have driven into one of the hikers there. Yeah, going from an understeery, sort of an understeery hot rod with no brakes to a bike that has phenomenal grip and lots of brakes. It took a bit of time getting used to, but I just couldn't quite deal with the speed on the first run. Yeah, there were a few times where I just braked so early for some of the corners, it just stopped dead in the middle of the course. It's very easy to get carried away with the bike as well, as it is so fast and has so much grip. You see, this one here, we get that stopped absolutely fine on the very steep hill. Yeah, it's very easy to think that you can take far too much speed through the corners. It isn't flat out all the way down here. Not by a long shot. You do still have to slow down for the corners. Again, I was thinking, oh yeah, we've got good brakes, I can brake after the jump. No, you can't. Otherwise you get a lot of airtime and fall off the mountain, and then you get a brief look at the sky before you smack into the ground. Yeah, it's incredibly easy when driving this to get far too carried away and think you can get away with some silly stuff. Just about survived turn one, and then we end up out of position and a tiny bump off a rock, and then the bike goes somewhere. Bike has vanished. Amazingly, Michael survives this one, which I wasn't expecting considering the speed. Yeah, normally you crash the bike and that's it for whatever character you're playing as, but the bike's gone somewhere. I have no idea. Somewhere down the mountain. Yeah, this was a little bit of a pain, that jump. I kept thinking I could get away with taking more speed. I couldn't, it's safe to say. Again, we smacked the ground pretty heavily, and the bike has just vanished. I'm not sure if it's disintegrated or whether it's where it's flung off. It did fly at some great speed. I have no idea how I survived that one. There is no way the character should have survived that crash. That was a big one. But somehow Michael is still okay. Yeah, it took a little while getting used to having just so much more speed and so much, like, it's just, you had speed in different places. For example, there, I don't think I've ever had that problem running so wide over that corner, or we've had just so much acceleration out of that corner that I ended up going wide, bouncing off a rock, and then sort of couldn't bring it back together. The bike is absolutely crazy. Down here, it's kind of it's good fun, but yeah, it is stupidly fast down this particular course. It took a bit of time to get used to the. I guess it took a bit of time to get used to the speed. It wasn't too bad though with the motorbike, because you just have so much grip. As I was saying with the hot rod, you know, if you break a bit late in the hot rod, like a fraction too late, you're in real trouble. In this, you're probably okay. You may end up running a little bit wide, but you can gather it back together without losing too much time, because there is so much grip. I didn't have any problems through this corner. It was easy to get it stopped, and then you can carry phenomenal speed through this bit, and then through the next bit as well. You can carry a lot more speed, be a lot more precise, and I don't think the bushes seem to affect it in the same way as the cars. Again, end up out a little bit wide over that particular jump, but it's no problem. Despite this being a sort of a sports bike, there are no huge issues with the jump. I got very lucky on this ending bit though. Up until that point I had no problems with the jumps. I just bounced it off. Amazingly, I managed to catch it all and keep it on the road. It is across the finish line for the Carbon RS. The final sort of 15-20 seconds of that run were just pure luck. I would like to say it was skill, but there was quite a lot of luck involved in keeping that together down there. But because we've got such good brakes on this bike, it could be slowed down in time for that second to last corner. Yeah, bikes are just as quick. Bikes are stupendously fast, very scary. Trying to drive down the mountain at that speed in first person. Our third and final vehicle, well, it was going to be the Chameleon, because that was the other limited edition collector's car thing, but I can't seem to get that in single player. I'm not sure if I'm missing something. I couldn't seem to find it in single player. So I went with something else that we haven't driven down the mountain before, the JB700. I do quite like this car. I just wish the guns would work. There's one mission where the guns work and it's incredibly good fun. I wish there was I wish you could get the guns working again on it, because yeah, they're very good fun to mess around with. This vehicle was actually quite a nice one to drive, although much like going from the Hotknife to the bike was a bit of a shock because you suddenly had grip and brakes. Going from the bike to anything is a bit of a shock because now you don't have the grip or the brakes. This car is a lot better than the Hotknife, but again, on the early runs, it was very easy to think, oh yeah, I can brake here, and then no you can't, or to try and carry the speed through a corner somewhere that you really can't. You can't get away with. But there wasn't any massive problems particularly with this car, which is quite surprising because here we've got sort of a classic sports car going off-roading. Yeah, sure, you've got to be careful. You still got to slow down for the corners, running a little bit wide through turn one, and we have a fairly spectacular tumble, and then we've gone off the mountain. Yeah, it's not going to be as fast as the bike, and that will take a bit of getting used to, having just driven the bike down the course. But it was pretty good. It was a nice vehicle to drive. Of course, when we did fall off the mountain, we could actually kind of get it stopped. On that occasion, we were busy rolling, so couldn't do much about it. But yeah, the brakes were much nicer on here. The only real problem I had with the vehicle is it had a tendency to bounce up on the landings of some of the heavier jumps. Now, some vehicles do this, and I can't for the life of me figure out what it is that causes it, because sometimes sports cars are fine with the jumps, sometimes sports cars don't like the jumps. This one didn't particularly like the jumps. If there was a weakness to this car, if you like, going down here, it would be that it occasionally bounced up on the landings of these jumps. again, here, it just gets a little bit of a bounce up off the landing, and then things go a little bit wrong as we go over the edge and end up pointing backwards. But you see, this one here, this car can slow itself down. If I'd been in the Hotknife and done that, it would be down the bottom of the course. But this vehicle has good enough brakes to get it stopped. Most of the errors, if you like, were sort of my driving mistakes on this one, just pushing it a little bit too hard. Again, I had a few issues with that particular corner, just carrying a little too much speed, just out-braking myself a little bit. And again, we're coming up towards another heavy landing on the jump, and we get a big two-wheeled moment, and it's a barrel roll, and everything's under control again. Again, there was some big luck involved there. I then got a bit too excited and just outbraked myself into the second to last corner. I was really hoping that was going to be the finished run as well. I would have kept that one if I could have stopped it for the second to last corner, because yeah, that was an impressive roll to keep it on the track. But again, it didn't take massively long for this car. It took a bit of time adjusting. We get a big almost two-wheel moment over that jump. Yeah, that's not really the line you want to take. I got away with it. Normally, if you run wide and clip that rock, you're in a whole world of trouble. You can very occasionally get away with it, as I did there. It's not where you really want to be. But through all of these corners, it was a nice car to drive. We didn't have the horrible understeer of the Hotknife, and yeah, the brakes were good. The turning was good. It was just the jumps that were a little bit problem. I end up running a tiny bit wide through the hairpin on this particular run. Just got to be a little bit careful over these jumps. Make sure you get it slowed down a little bit more. There was much better through that, but that's actually quite a deceptive corner. It's very easy to think you can carry a lot more speed through there than you actually can. It's a very nasty landing zone to that particular jump. So yeah, the trick with this one was really just to be a little bit slower over the jumps in the places where the landings could be a little bit problematic. We come up towards the final of the big jumps, gets a little bit of a wiggle on, but again, that kind of helped in that I slowed it down so that we didn't have such a heavy impact on the landing as we run down the little side road up towards the second to last corner, getting thrown around a little bit on the jumps, and we're out a tiny bit wide. But if you are out wide there, you do avoid some of the worst of the bumps on the exit, and it's across the line for the JB700. A nice car. I did quite enjoy driving this one, and it was a fairly easy one compared to the previous two vehicles, the crazily quick and twitchy bike and the kind of terrible Hotknife. Yeah, it was quite a nice vehicle. Unfortunately, it can't do a flame show either. On to the times, and it is unsurprisingly the bike that goes far quicker than anything else, with a 1:16.2. As I said, those bikes are just phenomenally quick. On GTA 5, the JB700 goes second. It goes quicker than the Stallion by almost a second. That's an impressive time, I have to say. I was surprised to see that go so much quicker than some of the other vehicles. And well, what isn't a surprise is the Hotknife down at the bottom, a 1:45.0. Yeah, it is just not an easy car to drive. No brakes and very little steering mean that it is quite slow going down the mountain. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.